There we go. Cancel. Jesus, I just started, man. I don't want to cancel just yet. What are we making tonight? Probably bats. I have a bunch of those I gotta get done. And, yeah, sorry I didn't mention anything last night about, live stream. Didn't realize how tired I was, and by the time I realized what time it was like 10:30, and I'm just like, well, they figured it out by now. Alrighty. Fabric. Okay, not that one. You. And you. And you. And you. And you. And you. And you, I guess. You. And you. And you. I already got one of you. Okay. Not sure if I'm doing Count Dracula tonight, or not Dracula. We're done with Dracula. Frankenstein. I'm hurting pretty good. I'm not in a good mood, and we're going to be sewing. So, probably won't get a lot of audio. Oh, hot water bottle in my lower back is just amazing. Ugh. Oh. Whew. You know. Alrighty. I think I might do some more Nature of Predators tonight, just the last 5 or 6 episodes. Just to get me caught up on everything. And I gotta plug this in. There we go. I have regrets. So many in my life. Okay. Alright. We're going to do right sides. Just going to pin everything down and sew everything together. How does that sound for now? Yeah. History. Da 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 da. History. Da 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 da. This one.
Has to die today. Certainly not.
New black diamond cheese sauces. So good. You don't want to tell people it's so easy.
You're not cut.
Memory transcription subject. Captain Sovlin, United Nations Fleet Command. Date. Standardized human time. November 28th, 2136. The human fleet maintained their positions while the Mazzy Cornwell sat in a precarious spot. Our hail was still transmitting, though the enemy hadn't picked up. An evacuation transport soared out of the atmosphere, scrambling civilians to safety. The Kolshians nailed the spacecraft with plasma and aimed it just right to take it out of commission. It seemed like they weren't trying to decimate it after all. Captain Monaghan's nostrils flared with agitation.
Federation Coalition, you fire on civilian targets again, and our ceasefire is over. We will not tolerate such actions.
A violet Kolshian blinked onto a holoscreen.
You're not going to sacrifice the Mazziks for victory and glory. Are you actually clever enough not to show your heartless side?
I question who the heartless ones are when you're the ones threatening a civilian populace. I couldn't care less about victory. We're here to save lives. That's what humans stand for.
The enemy commander paced back and forth, unfazed by the visual of a predator. His crew was a homogeneous blend of Kolshians rather than including aliens. The emerald surface of Koa was visible in their viewport, along with 3 target locks on the sensor readout. If I didn't know better, I would think the Commonwealth officer didn't know what to do. He waved a tentacle.
Damn it! We never wanted to kill them. We wanted to kill you. This fight wasn't supposed to happen like this.
Tell me something I haven't heard before.
Samantha grumbled beside me. Tyler glowered at her. Silence. Luckily, my guard's quip wasn't picked up on the call. One wrong word could end in catastrophe for the civilians. I was relieved to hear the Kolshians didn't want to initiate the bombing. At least there was some morality among their ranks. However low the bar was, the Terran captain took the incendiary statement in stride and curbed the lips down.
Well, why don't you fight us then? What is it that you want?
Monahan demanded. The Kolshian's eyes bulged.
We want you to stop gaining power, Predators. Mykonos is right. You show no restraint in your wars. Your aggression is the Krokottles 100-fold.
And your solution to this perception is untempered aggression of your own. I guarantee if you bomb Koa, you're going to give more species reasons to leave the Federation. You can't undo millions of deaths. That blood will be on your conscience forever.
Then back off. You won't. You're too proud.
I can't do that. Especially given your history of changing species irreversibly.
So which city should I bomb first, Predator? I hear Tolinio has a high industrial capacity. Shame it's a bustling civilian hub too.
The Predator captain had her hands behind her back, but I could see her nails digging into her palm. That indignation was something I shared, hearing such callous threats against the planet. It reminded me of the Arx's disregard for civilians. The Kolshians might have studied hunters a bit too much. Bartering with lives was dishonorable. Monahan bared her teeth and slanted her eyebrows.
That's your prerogative. But when humanity reaches Alpha, and we will, we'll glass one Kolshian city for every bomb you drop here. Blood for blood. Should we start with the School of the Flora? Or do you have a substitute in mind?
You!
Shut up! If you surrender now, we'll treat your lot under our rules of warfare, as prisoners with fair treatment. Trust me, because of those unrestrained wars you saw, you want us to apply the Geneva Conventions. It's going to be a bad day for you if we decide those are no longer applicable.
I recalled my lawyer's explanation regarding the UN's prohibition of torture. I was curious what other crimes and devices the Earthlings banished in those agreements. It was a safe bet that contraptions humans thought too depraved for use were beyond the realms of our nightmares. All predators were prone to unfathomable cruelty. That was why I'd been able to torture Marcel with such viciousness. Humans are capable of everything the Arxa have done. They choose not to, but nobody wants to see them go fully unhinged. Fear flashed in the Kolshian commander's golden eyes. The intensity in Monahan's hungry gaze brought extra weight to her threat. It was like staring into the countenance of death. That unyielding scowl was an assertion of dominance, whether done consciously or not. I found it difficult to shrug off her animosity, though it wasn't directed at me.
I'd rather die than see any of my men surrender to you. As for Arthur, you wouldn't flaunt your cruelty while masquerading for the prey.
The Kolshian hissed. Monahan bobbed her shoulders.
You're confused. Either we're aggressive predators that can't control ourselves, or we do show restraint. Pick one.
You're twisting my words, alien freak.
I have no time for petty insults. What is an acceptable way to get you far, far away from this system? That's what we all want.
The Commonwealth officer sported a stricken expression. Hatred sparkled in his eyes, and he stole a glance back at his bridge crew. No captain wanted to watch their subordinates die. I always felt responsible when my plans went awry and casualties ensued. Decisions traced back to the commander. The Kolshians saw in the underlings' faces how much they longed to escape from the predators. The prospect of being hunted by humans terrified them. Terrans were too methodical to outwit. The Arxa could get sloppy due to their food aspirations, but the primates treated war like a mathematical equation. They sought the simplest solution to render the enemy dead.
Let 1,500 leave and don't attempt to pursue them. A few hundred of us will stay behind.
The enemy leader decided.
Use so much as scanners. I will order Koa bombed with the remainder.
Monahan straightened.
A smart decision. You don't want to lose so many ships with all the souls aboard. The UN will allow you to flee. That's acceptable to my parameters.
Onzo scoured the viewport as ship activity picked up around the planet. The Terran fleet opened avenues for enemy departures and made no efforts to engage them. The more hostiles we cleared out of the area, the lower the maximum casualties were. This was a step in the right direction as far as I was concerned. The Yotol shook his head.
Should I prepare for pursuit? We can't just let those bastards leave.
I'll wait for the captain's orders, but I imagine we'll honor our word. It sets a good precedent to be able to negotiate, Tyler answered. Carlos shot a glance at Sam.
I know what you're thinking, but it would be nice to have options on the table. Maybe they'll even start letting us surrender, giving us sapient rights.
The female human snorted.
Dream on. They like us better dead.
Sometimes I think the Federation likes us better dead too. But the truth is, they don't care about us at all.
Onzo spat.
Did you know they offered to destroy our railroads and steamboats?
My eyes narrowed at the Uplift's distortion of events. The Federation weren't my favourite faction anymore, but clearing out obsolete technology was helpful. I didn't understand why the humans were giving him sympathetic looks. Disgust crossed Tyler's expression, and Carlos wrinkled his nose as well. I chewed at my claws. Well, you don't need them anymore. You're stuck in the past, Onzo. No reason to keep relics around. Onzo curled his lip.
That's what they said. They called it a celebration as they demolished our shipyards. Maybe we still like the things we built.
But the Federation tech is better. Is this about pride?
Pride is not seeking your own identity. Fuck you.
Carlos swatted my neck.
Erasing someone's culture and beliefs is a form of genocide. I'd think you, of all people, would understand that, Sovlin.
Tyler glared at me before storming off to comfort Onzo. The mention of my name was enough to make his blood boil. The wedge between us hadn't been dealt with. My wrongdoing wasn't his fault, and it had never been my intent to disrupt his work. When the current crisis was resolved, I owed the tall human an apology. The fleeing Kolshians had put some distance between themselves and Koa while rushing to escape the FTL Disruptor's range. I imagined they were looking over their shoulder for pursuing predators. None of them eased up on the accelerator, since being the herd straggler was a death sentence. But the humans resisted the urge to chase. They rarely succumbed to hunter desires. Terrans can conduct themselves like normal people despite their deficits. It never ceases to impress me.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
Captain Monaghan turned her back to the camera, gazing at the stars.
We never had to fight. We could work to make something better.
Quit it with your lies. Counting colonies, 34 worlds have been wiped out since we met you. And you've been here 4 months.
The Kolshian muttered.
We didn't start or even bomb any of those. It's not our fault everyone keeps attacking us and abandoning your defenses.
You're in cahoots with the Arxa. Pulling the strings even. You wouldn't attract them if you went rotten to the core. Humans enjoy killing, for all your empathy.
I enjoy stopping bad people from hurting others. Nobody else has to die today. Certainly not innocent hostages because you hate us. On our honor, we'll let you all leave unharmed.
The Kolshian shifted with discomfort. It was clear he mistrusted the human's proposition. Several of the ships he left behind were making a break for it without waiting for orders. Flighty captains weren't going to give the predators time to change their mind. It left a sour taste in my mouth to see the enemy getting away.
On your honor?
The Kolshian flailed with exasperation.
What good does that do me? Predators deceive.
Monaghan snorted.
So do prey. Look at you. I haven't lied to you once, nor has the human race. Please, think of the Mazics.
I'm not a murderer. I don't want to kill children. Herbivores. Shit. Your trick is working. We'll leave.
The video feed switched off before the human could respond. The Kolshian ships glided away from Koa's vulnerable surface, maintaining their formation. The Terran fleet honored the non-aggression pact rather than confronting the enemy. The Predators were here to save their allies first and foremost. The human crew offered a rousing applause for Captain Monaghan, which took the aliens by surprise. I was accustomed to the Predators' noise level after living around them for months. Bringing a Terran nearby was a fast way to dismantle peace and quiet. The poor Thyssen-on comms bucked in agitation, and the Vendil observers covered their sensitive ears. Onzo delighted in the ruckus, however, with his primitive sensibilities. The Yotol began yipping and jumping around like an animal. Monaghan allowed the cacophony for a moment before shouting orders to pipe down. Silence overtook the bridge in an instant. The Terran captain sighed.
Let's not pat ourselves on the back yet. This was a good day for us, but I promise the Mazics won't look back as fondly. Cons, hail Koa.
The beige mammal on screen answered with immediacy. His eyes were frantic, as though he'd fallen over himself to respond. Upon closer inspection, I recognized the older male as President Kupo. The Mazic leader seemed alarmed to be at the Predator fleet's mercy. Their defenses were laid bare, and the poor guy was frazzled from the assault too.
Greetings.
Monaghan said politely.
Do you require any aid? We're happy to assist with search and rescue. There's a civilian hauler immobilized in orbit for starters.
Kupo flared his trunk.
No, thank you. We can handle it. What payment can I offer you, humans? We'll give you whatever you want.
The payment? We don't want anything from you. Humanity came to your aid because we're allies. You're part of our pack now, as I imagine you would put it.
The Mazic was silent for a long time. Something resembling regret flickered in his gaze, though it was gone a second later. The leader composed himself and turned back to the camera. He appeared isolated in a vast bunker with only a single aid.
I never trusted humanity. I wasn't willing to risk my people to help Earth.
Kupo said.
Even with Seleni's revelation, I only committed resources to your team because I saw the Federation was a sinking ship. Now, you protected us. And I am sorry. Please, let us repay your aid.
The Terran captain chuckled.
All is forgiven, President Kupo. Your choices were relatively tame compared to the genocidal maniacs in the Federation.
Hi, sweetie.
Oh, human. I stood beside those people for years. It was wonderful. All herbivores working together in perfect harmony.
Prime Big Deal Days are coming October 10th and 11th. With 2 days of big savings exclusively for Prime members, you'll feel like a VIP.
Right this way. Your hairdryer deal is waiting.
Hi, baby. Come here.
Deals from clothes to electronics. It's
Thank
on
you for the
Prime
thumbs
Big Deal
up.
Days, October 10th and 11th.
How did nobody see the truth? I should have.
Don't blame yourself. We all see what we want to see. Just like people read evil into us and cherry pick our worst moments. Because that's what they're looking for.
Hi, baby.
You've had to grovel and scrape, human, but not anymore. The Mazic Presidium will never forget your heroism. I'll set aside my best
Oh,
scientists
good
to
Lord,
support
dirty.
our colonization efforts.
You
and
dirty.
of our abandoned worlds, unless you mind being so close to us.
Not one bit. The United Nations would love to cooperate going forward.
My ears swiveled away from the dialogue, and I padded away from the sensor station. Pronounced footsteps followed at once, and a shadow fell over my form.
No, poor baby.
Without looking, I knew it was
Boogers.
Tyler lurking behind me.
Good eye
He
boogers.
was stalking me with predatory intent. Fear pulsated through my ribcage, and my spines bristled to the point of discomfort. Swallowing, I ambled into the mess hall and swiveled around.
Dirty.
The
You rolled
census
in kitty
officer's
litter.
jawline was rigid, suggesting the human wanted to bite me. His teeth were ill-suited for that, but the subconscious tell was there. Those blue eyes glittered like ice, scorching into my vulnerable areas. I cleared my throat. Sir, I'm sorry for my initial behavior. I panicked when you said Slanik, and I didn't want to disrupt. A fist rammed into my snout before I could flinch. Tyler's punch carried phenomenal power as his calcified bones connected with my skin. I caressed my bleeding nostrils, and the human snaked an elbow around my neck. His knee lurched up into my stomach, knocking out the breath. I doubled over, but the predator's grip kept me from collapsing. Pain overwhelmed my senses, and my conscious mind relished it. Control was slipping away, however, as instinctive panic suppressed my faculties. It took the
you're
last
bad
of my
tonight.
lucidity to refrain from swiping back. Tyler tightened his hold on my neck before hurling me into a cabin. I slammed against the upholstery, fumbling into a ball. The human marched ahead with effortless strides and hovered over me. My heart was on the brink of bursting, seeing his malicious snarl.
This is what it feels like to be physically beaten and powerless to fight back. You did that to Marcel for a week.
the Terran officer spat. I coughed out the blood that trickled into my mouth. I hate myself for it. Only didn't kill myself. So humans could have justice. The predator watched me crawl on the floor before extending a rough hand. I accepted his paw, allowing him to pull me to my feet. Rather than resuming the slugfest, Tyler helped me to a chair. He retrieved a paper towel from the sink and pressed it to my nose. The primate stepped back. You want to die? Sure, but I'm a coward. Tears swelled in my eyes and rolled down in rivulets. Turns out I'm terrible at getting myself killed and at picking out the monsters who hurt my family. It wasn't Marcel, but any predator sufficed. Shit, man. Did you ever get treatment for PTSD? What you went through was pretty fucked up. You should have never been in a commanding position to begin with. Treatment for what? That didn't translate. I see. You should talk to a therapist. I know a good one. It's what Marcel would want. Tyler decided our spat was finished and left me to nurse my wounds. Was mental treatment what Marcel would really want for me? My thoughts harkened back to my cell on Earth and the red-haired human mocking my inability to cope. I was beginning to believe that he realized self-contempt was the worst punishment. Didn't he want me to live with this misery until death's sweet release? But Tyler knows him personally. If he says Marcel would want to help me. With Coed's rescue, I saw that humans stood for the preservation of life. Perhaps that extended to someone like myself, despite my past. It terrified me to explore my predator side. Losing my identity had been devastating. How could anyone grapple with their entire life being a lie? There was one certainty, one absolute truth in my universe now. It was that humans were the only ones that could stitch this galaxy back together.
Until we fuck it up. Because humans always fuck it up. So that's what humans do. Alrighty. I guess we're gonna switch over to Frankenstein again. Uh-oh. S&D, okay, fine. Do. Oh, but I don't want to. Alright, I'm taking the night off. I'm making the executive decision to listen to something else. Yeah, we're taking the night off from Frankenstein. I'm just going to listen to something I've already listened to tonight. It's my live stream and I can procrastinate if I want to.
From idea to submission, empower students to do their best work with Grammarly's generative AI. What if they could jumpstart ideas for any assignment? What if they could cite sources instantly? What if...
Memory transcription subject. Governor Tarver of the Venlo Republic. Date, standardized human time, October 4th, 2136. The shuttle halted a few parsecs short of Venlo space until the necessary repairs were complete. This delay tapped hours to our travel time, but none of the other options were reasonable. If the drive overheated, the ensuing explosion would bring about our swift demise. I wondered how the passengers reacted to our sudden stop, and my refusal to explain any details. Jawson hadn't taken any convincing to come to our aid, even after he processed the murky truth. He was pacing back and forth now, putting tongue to his mouth. With his quadrupedal stature, there's really and barely surpassed the human's knee. Noah was biting his lip, and I assumed the Predator was holding back a reaction to the adorable scientist. Now was not the time to divulge that wrinkle to our new friend, especially when that furry guy was the potential ally we were most optimistic about. I sorted through the shape-conforming vac suits, picking out one designed for small quadrupeds. Strong magnets fixed a standardized toolbox to one sleeve, saving on a few science specials but they're chosen for basic repairs. Thanks again for helping us. Do you think this is something you can handle? I asked.
I'll do my best, Tava.
The Zerulian wiggled into the suit, baring his teeth in discomfort. The fabric was still restricting in all the wrong places.
We only need it to hold together long enough to get a few parsecs. Let's just try to minimize the stress of the warp drive.
Slow and steady, I confirmed. But remember, this is our business. We don't want anyone else getting wind of this.
You really think it's someone here? Why would they damage a ship they're on with a,
No role is ever realized.
Predator, it's okay, you can say it.
Jawson winced.
Yeah. I don't see the logic of that plan.
If everyone were logical, this all would have been much easier, I responded. It's just a possibility for now. Honestly, it's more likely that it's someone outside this crew. Some people would sacrifice themselves in a heartbeat to fight flesh-eating monstrosities.
I can feel the love.
The Gibbon growled.
You'd be better off to seek respect rather than love.
Jawson struggled with his headgear, fumbling with the clip.
Love can be quite the fleeting emotion, you know.
The quadruped flicked his ears with annoyance, and Noah helped him click the helmet into place. Those opposable thumbs were more useful than most species' toes and claws. I was impressed by how fast the Terran picked up on alien non-verbal cues, given how little he had actually been told. The Zerulian gave the tether on his chest a final tug, ensuring it was fastened. He shimmered into the crawl space when there was a click as the emergency level concealed. Left alone with me, Noah's composition dissolved. A smile tugged at his lips, and he allowed a fawning look into his gears.
Oh, seeing Jawson dressed up in a spacesuit with those little teddy bear ears. Talva, my heart feels real fuzzy.
The ambassador declared. Amusement fled within my sternum. No clue what a teddy bear is. I guess then we'll aren't key to you anymore if we've been replaced so easily.
Don't go getting all jealous on me now. Why not I want to think the entire galaxy is cute?
You think the Arcs are cute?
Damn you. You know that wasn't what I meant.
You said the entire...
I know what I said. And honestly, maybe baby Archer are cute. We think pretty much any youngling is cute. Even the mean or Obi-Wan.
You've got to be shitting me. You've really doubling down on that.
I am. What are you going to do about it?
A chuckle twirled from my chest, picturing the Predator crowing at baby reptilians, as I would be stretching their nurturing instincts a little too far for my liking. Humans' fierce protectiveness of their offspring was something I noticed in their earliest transmissions. It would be interesting to meet a little primate. Despite their eyes, their innocence and enthusiasm looked endearing. It's wonderful that Noah and I's friendship is so easygoing and that we can mess around now. They would have apologized for the implication before this trip, instead of recognizing that I was kidding. I gave the human a playful headbutt. I'm going to make us focus on potential culprits. We need to go over the list of species on board pronto. With any luck, we can clear most of them. Maybe all of them.
Fine.
Noah's grin dissolved and the teasing out leapt from his intonation.
Let's start with the Mazik. Even as a reluctant ally, I doubt you'll ever like me.
It was tough to become Sal President Trupos ridicule during Noah's speech with the potential of friendship. The human had attempted to push any past incident off, fielding his critical questions in our voyage with aplomb. At least the Mazik was touching on genuine topics and listening to the given responses. Still, mistrust flowed from Kupo at every turn. He stated himself that his work stemmed from the Federation's desperation against the Arcs alone. There was little more dangerous than a man with nothing left to lose. Not to mention that Noah's first thought was that the President was only partaking in this foray to stir up trouble. The Mazik would be my prime suspect, if it weren't for the fact that their figurehead was present in the flesh. Surely a planetary leader would set a standard to carry out devious plans. Why would he cause disruption to his planet's governance other than as a show of good faith? Kupo came himself, I replied. It would be like me going on a suicide mission. I wouldn't be the first candidate the Vendome proposed.
Leadership is important, I suppose. But that isn't the full exoneration. Alright. What about the Nivox?
You're just picking the ones you don't like first.
So what if I am?
The Nivok representative put on quite the performance for the Predator, perhaps with the belief that playing up to a division would impress him. Tosser's haughtiness had the opposite effect, though. Her ability to call with Noah suggested either she was brave, or that her dislike was mutual. Predetermined hate was a fine motive to ensure human diplomacy failed. However, the Nivok government had more to gain from trade than most other species. The Terrans would be creating more ships than anyone in their rush to fortify their fleet. A lucrative defense contract could keep them safe for years. War was profitable for manufacturing powers. I think Tosser dislikes Malvo more than you, I snorted. The Navok Imperium are using you for economic benefits if you hadn't already figured that out. They don't accomplish anything from getting us all stranded in space. Noah scratched his chin.
But what if they did get something? What if someone like the Kirkuttle paid them off?
While the Nivox could be bribed, their price would be steep enough that you could buy a whole colony instead. If I were an outside actor, I'd do it myself, or find a cheaper entity to do my bidding.
It doesn't have to be their government, Arbor. It could be a rogue actor, a single person who was swayed and broke with official policy. We don't have to assign blame to an entire species.
Sure, but I think you just wanted to be the Nivox, so that you can gag their diplomat.
That is a baseless accusation.
Right. I'm just going to move on. That just leaves the Certificate and the Yoto. It would be simpler to make a determination about Axley if we had gotten more than a sentence out of her this whole trip. She displayed more skittishness than the rest of us combined. What if that extreme terror stemmed from concerns of the Predator catching her treachery? That, or her pre-existing fear had driven her to act against humanity. However, her own cowardice didn't mesh with the profile of a martyr or fanatic. I'd expect a little more hatred and regret for such an enemy after witnessing the sadistic behavior of Sovereign. Though it was a long shot, it would satisfy me if the humans captured that officer during their war. I wouldn't blame the UN for executing the Gajid on the spot. If Sovereign somehow survived, I'd want him tried in our court for throwing a wounded very low in a filthy cage with a predator. Not that Marcel was ever going to eat Sonic, but that was the captain's intent. That's attempted murder. Noah tilted his head.
Right now, the only thing the ship gets guilty of is a poor choice of personnel.
But that's a bit harsh. Everyone cooks with Thea differently. I pinned my ears against my head, recalling how disastrous first contact was. My diplomatic advisor passed out at your initial smile, but now he loves humans. Actually, might warm up to you too.
Actually,
That's her name.
gotcha. Now, onto the Yoto.
I sensed the marsupial was Noah's favourite. That said, having the species on board, Uplifts had the most to gain from a ploy. Outfoxing a predator was the ultimate display of intellect. It would be the swiftest way to silence any primitive jabs. This sabotage could be a calculated risk to garner respect from some Federation peers. Come to think of it, Lalo was the one who blurted out that the Kerning shaft was the culprit. The fact that it was just as he said was an oddity of itself. That he hadn't wavered while being discredited and badgered by his colleagues was even stranger. Either the Autolot familiarized himself with mechanical noise to impress the human, or he had known about the pipes' defectiveness prior. That a lord is pretty incriminating. I'm surprised I didn't catch on to that sooner. The puzzling bit was why Lalbo would offer that information if he was responsible. Someone who was setting up a drive explosion shouldn't want that problem rectified before he paid dividends. The Uplift might have known that a diagnostic would reveal the issue and decided to cut his losses. We could always move on to Plan B. My tail drooped between my legs. How did the Otul know what the issue was immediately?
Well, just because he's an Uplift doesn't mean he's an idiot.
I didn't say that, Noah. Every other passenger, including myself and you, had no idea. We've been on ships our whole adult lives.
It could be a lucky guess. Maybe Lalo was studying to be a mechanic. We haven't talked about our personal aspirations.
Even then, there wasn't a trace of doubt. He stated it as fact, not preceded by an "I think" clause. It was like he knew he was right. The Predator was quiet, and I sensed him replaying the exact words in his head. Noah's disappointment was obvious. Protecting the Otor was the most passion I'd seen from the Ambassador since his desperate plea on the Federation floor. Humanity would love to take a fledgling species into their wing and explore the galaxy together. My friend cursed and slammed his fist into a wall. The human bent over at once, clutching that hand to his stomach. His binocular eyes were narrowed to slits while his teeth were on full display. His uncontrolled breathing was animalistic, punctuated by furious grunts. Was the Terran still in control during this fit of predatory rage? My instinct shadowed my consciousness for the first time in a while. I had never seen Sweet Noah like this. It took all of my willpower to step forward and place a shaking paw on his arm. "You're hurting yourself more than the war," I squeaked. "He doesn't feel pain."
I know that.
His lips twitched as he nursed his injured hand.
But fuck. I don't want it to be Lawlor. The Yoto were a newer species who don't have historic prejudices against us.
We don't know it's him. But let's not overreact.
But you were right. It doesn't make sense how he knew with such confidence from that one sound. Why is the whole galaxy so unfair? Everyone is so fucking hateful.
Silence was my answer, as much as I wanted to offer soothing words. I didn't know how to handle an angry human, or at what point they presented a threat to those around them. It was possible that my immediate response would exacerbate the problem. Trusting Noah to calm down on his own might be best. I took a deep breath and turned my back to the furious human. It felt wrong to leave myself unguarded, at least while he was in attack mode. Forcing my eyes open, I searched through a mini-fridge. There was no ice, but hopefully a cold water pouch would suffice. The burning in my chest eased once I stood upright, and the predator was back in my vision. My claws wrapped around Noah's wrist, throwing me into his pressing paws. The ambassador allowed me to move the aching hand, and it slapped at my grip. I gently pressed the water container to his knuckles. At least that would ease any physical pain.
Thanks, Tarver. Sorry for blowing up in your face.
The human's dilated eyes read mine for a moment before he looked away.
I have your support, don't I?
Always, I whispered.
Good. Now let's get back to the others before Cupo barges in here asking a million questions. Johnson's going to be a while.
We're not going to detain Lambo, or at least interrogate him.
If I tie up the auto now, how are the others going to react? My explanation won't matter. This needs to be handled quietly. It's better to act somewhere that we're in complete control.
Fair point. I can pull him off to the side when we land on Venlo Prime. The predator offers his uninjured hand, and I accepted it with an eyeball. Mischief played in his brown irises as his fingers intertwined with my claws. One nail tickled the fur right into my paw pad, which caused me to yank my limb back. A hint of a smirk jumped at his face as the affectionate moment of solidarity was ruined. I pointed towards the control room exit. Stop walking, or I'm going to start calling you Predator Noah too. His eyebrows shot up.
You wouldn't.
Oh, I would. Right in front of your dear friend, Tosser. Just me.
Fine. I'm going now.
Noah's strides were poised and confident, a far cry from the raving beast I saw minutes ago. I followed him into the cabin, and our return caused the guests to break off their discussions. Actually, he had been speaking with Cupo, but she skidded away at the human's return. She couldn't keep doing this for the entirety of her visit. There were going to be hundreds of UN personnel on site when we docked.
Welcome back, Ambassador Noah.
Lalo yipped.
Thanks. You were right about the coolant shaft.
The predator's tone was light with false cordiality, and he settled across from the marsupial.
Quite clever deduction. We'll be back up and running within the next few hours, I hope.
The uplift flicked his ears in acknowledgement. Under the human's watchful eye, I trusted that your toll couldn't pull off any shenanigans. We just needed to maintain a facade of normalcy for a little longer, before we could press our suspect on his involvement. Part of me hoped that our theory was wild speculation, that it could be disproved for Noah's sake. After our lengthy ordeal, both of us were beset
I'm
by
overthinking
paranoia.
again.
I hope this investigation wouldn't dampen the terror reception to their new friends. If nothing else panned out, the civilians looked like they might be better neighbours than us. This could still be a positive endeavour overall that would lend humanity a diplomatic foothold within the galaxy. We didn't have to let one rotten fruit spoil the barrel.
You can make a lot when you start with wonder. Like this. Discover fan-made creations at WonderBreadShop.com. It starts with wonder.
Memory transcription subject. Captain Sutherland, Federation Fleet Command. Date. Standardized human time. October 6th, 2136. There were no signs of life or civilization nearby. The cinders of a blaze rested off to my side. An orange glow clinging to the black dust. A charred Gajee corpse was draped over the ashes, with the spaces between its skeleton hauled out. It was as though some predator had cleaned the flesh off its carcass. How had I gotten here? My hind legs were tied to a pole behind me, while my forepaws were fastened to one ahead of me. Warmth brushed against my stomach, and my attention was drawn to its source below. A quick glance revealed a piece of hungry flames on sandy earth, stoked by a wooden heap. Fuck, I'm next. Someone is trying to eat me alive, giving more blood a whole new meaning. What if this is the answer? Every instinct encouraged me to scream, but my voice had stopped working. It felt like swimming through cement. Motions lagged seconds
Great.
behind my
I'll
brain
put over here
signals.
because I want to.
My claws tried to move, either to cut through the ropes or thrash about. But as my vision lighted upon the curved appendages, they began to peel off my paws. Growling echoed behind me, and a bipedal shape moved within a mass of shadows. It was more rounded and graceful than any archer. At first, all I I could see that was the reflection of flame in his pupils. Given that its hideous gaze headed like directly toward me, I knew those were predator eyes. Panic constricted my throat, and the thin veneer of logic dissipated. The creature stepped out of the shadows, baring its yellow teeth. That sinuous form sported only small clumps of hair jarred my memory. Everything I knew about humanity, including my decision to remand myself to their custody, came rushing back. That rumbling noise was laughter. They were amused by our helplessness and naivety. Hundreds more humans emerged from the darkness encircling me. I was right about these hairless freaks from the beginning. Now that their ruse had taken hold, they were going to wipe out the last refugees for laughs. The first predator twisted the crank on the spit, and my support began to descend toward the fire. Recognition flashed through my mind, picking out the green markings on his arm. It was that UN guard, Carlos. I tried to elevate my torso, but I was sinking lower by the second. Stop! Please! Words finally tumbled from my throat, a stream of panicked whimpers. Carlos! Why are you doing this? Humans! You don't want to do this. Carlos!
Zombie, I'm not doing anything.
The fellow predator's voice replied, though I never saw his lips move.
Wake up.
An invisible touch jostled my shoulders, and I jolted upright in a cramped bunk. My heart was racing at 1,000,000 miles an hour. Panic made it impossible to think straight. I swiped my claws in a wide arc, aiming for the bloody shape in my periphery. My gravity curse reverberated through the air. The human sprang back with lightning-quick reflexes. Carlos raised his hands in front of him, inching toward the door. The primate's eyes fitted to his holster, which sat on his hip. I blinked in confusion, realizing I was back on the Terran military ship. My claws were still in one piece, and nobody had taken a bite out of me while I was sleeping. It was a nightmare, probably the result of my brain trying to process my attitude shift toward humans. My subconscious was clinging to the notion that these predators were twisted and rapacious. The fire thing might have come from Terran soldiers toasting s'mores in the cafeteria last night. I closed my eyes and attempted to steady my breathing. Sorry, bad dream, I sighed. The human narrowed his eyes.
I can tell. You said, what are you doing?
Toasting me over a fire, laughing more than alive.
That's absurd. Summon INA to babysit.
I struggled to my feet, using the bed frame as well. They brought me on board as a tactical advisor for their mission to liberate the Ghajiq cradle. The UN commander in my presence. Several officers shot me nasty looks when I was introduced. Captain Monaghan, who was the ship's commander, warned her men not to take justice into their own hands.
I know many of you are some but he's not classes against the enemy. He knows their weak points, their tactics, and their terrain. If anyone lays a finger on him, and it gets back to me, I will have you shit-canned so fast your head will spin.
That made it quite evident to me that my crimes had been broadcasted across Earth. Carlos from the human personnel told me to shrug off any taunts by soldiers in passing. I made attempts to engage in personal conversation with my guards. They seemed to make a point of pulling out their phones and ignoring my questions. But it was obvious they wasn't sure. I was surprised that chatting with a criminal would put them at odds with their prize a battle. My commentary needed to be strictly professional and stick to the grays. I apologize that my dream was about you and for my subsequent reaction.
You don't have to not sleep, Zombie.
Well, I'm sorry.
Bridge anyways. Captain wants everyone at their stations. We're about to...
I scampered toward the exit at those words, not wanting to miss a chance of drawing arms of blood. Carlos's lips curved up slightly with a snarl on his face. He looked violent. Down and dimly. Dozens of unfamiliar predators were padding toward their assignments without a lick. Hardened and intimidated. Thunderous chatter carried through the hallway as we approached a bend in the path. Which deposited into the bridge. Monaghan was seated in a central chair, struggling towards the viewport. I recognized Samantha among a group of soldiers comparing sensor data with projections. There was no stone left unturned and no post left unmanned. Humans were built for this. They adjusted to the medium of space warfare with the rifles. They were the arms and blood. In my veins, but this time it was mixed with reverent awe. Monahan nodded.
Excellent. Sensors, report. 230 confirmed hostiles on tracking.
Came a reply from the respective cluster.
No signs of active combat or any remaining UN or Virginia friendlies. The Grey still appear to be engaged in the bombing campaign. Any Arxa vessels keeping watch? If we see them, they see us. About 40 ships. Navigation system weakest link. Good. The entire UN fleet made the jump safely. They'll divert a few ships to covering our 6 while we blitz Hellfire on those bastards.
The bitch communication was so thorough and professional, like it was down to a science. There was no question in orders or emotions mixed into their exchange. Judging by the simulations I saw at my initial briefing, the Terran player was to concentrate fire on the old safety ships as decoys, drawing the staunchest defenders out of position. Carlos ushered me to a check at the weapons station within the captain's earshot. Our vessel dropped out of warp before we could be stunned by any anti-FTL weapons. Dozens of allies shimmied into position around us, cruising at various angles and headings. A golden gas giant rested to one side, and its gravitational field might cause disruption to the enemy's readings. A sensor on is piped up again.
Mom, several Archer patrols are trying to pinch us on the river flank. Closing fast. All according to the plan. Continue ahead.
My peoples focused on the space behind us, where several Terran ships bunched up on intercept posts. The reptilians attempted to nail them with long-range missiles, and the clever monkeys deployed interceptors as counter-shot. Streaming plasma spouted from the humans' railways, right dazzling. Impressive as it looked, the efficiency was doubtful when anything wasn't in visual range. The predators can't line anything up from that distance. And they're just trying to make the answer flinch. That skirmish faded into the backdrop, becoming no more than dots on my sensor overlay. Our trajectory was a straight shot to my homeworld, and that meant facing the vessels bombarding it. I believed that the humans would greet the Arxa with a ferocity they'd never seen before. The bristling of my spines intensified as I recalled the videos of the Greys snatching Gajeeds off the streets, the Terran and Gajeed ships that engaged the enemy. Succumbing to this was our final hope. But what could we save of our society? All of our landmarks and cities have been pulled into oblivion. Our thoughts straight to the UN soldiers on the surface, who fought tooth and nail for our civilians. A better word. Trying to wait out the storm. Would Gajeeds even allow a Predator to hunker down in their shop? The census technician
Two ships and counting. All intercept heading toward the fleet.
The navigations officer looked to the captain.
Shall we alter our course?
Captain Monahan scowled.
Negative. All stations prepare to engage.
The viewport magnified a small blip, and an angular behemoth appeared on screen. Its design catered to packing as many explosives on board as possible. I wished I could be more useful than a spectacle parked at the weapons station. The humans around me weren't taking my advice as I had hoped. I worried that padding up might be taken as criticism. The officers around me and the hostiles and AI systems. Structural damage would be a plus. It wasn't the crippling knockout they were seeking. The precious hunters with missiles. One of his finger over the firing trigger. You're targeting the wrong spot. The few irritated gazes. I didn't know how anyone could get used to that paralyzing stares. You could do more damage elsewhere. Sit down and shut use you as bait. Captain Monahan raised a hand.
But that's enough. Speakers. Copy it off for inside.
You're trying to knock out my intelligence, like your briefings, which your intelligence is right. That's the play for most ships. But this is a heavy bomber.
And?
She pressed. It'll go up in flames. Much cleaner. I would never help the Arxa. It can't be that hard to believe that I want those fuckwits to fry. The captain drummed her fingers on an armrest. Monahan was ready to trust me with the lives of their crew. Even if my counsel was a good idea on paper, with the Greys coming in hot, there were only seconds to make a decision. I was a very good someone who intimidated and cheered if this entire show was happening. Now, I see humans as people, or at least I'm trying to. Position.
Go ahead. Fire the shot as quick as possible. Target the center of its underside.
She growled.
Sovlin, if
this. I'm going to throw you in a deep dark hole for a long fucking time.
A falling sensation permeated the artificial gravity as the warship rapidly altered its course. The weapons station heeded the orders despite any crewmates' extraneous options. They selected the approximate coordinates and dispatched a plasma beam in quick succession. The Archer ship's approach carried it within weapons range, and it launched a slew of missiles toward us. The human's power was committed to weapons, not shields. We didn't have enough time to raise them and stabilize our defenses. The Terrans veered sharply to one side, and I prayed the projectiles would avoid tipping us. The energy from our railgun closed the distance with formidable speed, sizzling across the sky. Our plasma volley arrived before the Archer munitions, punching into the missile bay. Explosions rocked its insides and set up a chain reaction that culminated with the drive. Premature cheers came from the humans as our opponent was reduced to a sea of shrapnel. While I was satisfied with my own knowledge, the great destruction didn't stop me. Creep from the the missile indicators practically overlapped with our ship. My heart went up. One by one, the flashing dots slipped past us, avoiding contact with the extensive standing on a bridge with these predators felt good for some strange reason.
Nice ball, Sovlin.
Captain Monroe.
We'll make a note of that ship. Thanks for the heads up.
Don't mention it. Like I said,
All of the is
those words were music to my ears. Wasn't too much to hold my planet, my galaxy to be cleansed of its filth. The Archer deserved to have their own tactics like ours. There wasn't enough suffering well for our nemesis. But I would settle for a long list of casualties. The human vessel ploughed ahead, continuing to make headway toward the Gajini cradle. Scoring a victories again would be the kind of morale boost Earth needed. And for the first time in a while, I thought the Federation might have a chance in the war. We had our own predators now.
Shop and Beauty Plus event. Discover more points. Shop now at shopperjugmart.ca.
Memory transcription subject. Captain Sovlin. 2136. The way the humans maneuvered through space was like a bird of prey. The target. It was a graceful and emotionless we shrewd off their assailants, fell into position, and began to coordinate their next targets. Meanwhile, the dogged Archer were forming ranks across the globe. They had no intent of relinquishing their position to a few primitives. Every sort of ammunition imaginable was ready to be locked at the first UN ship to stray too close. The Terrans were foolish enough to approach the reptilians directly, instead charting their course off to one side. Sharply back. I'm surprised the Terrans stepped into speed. My data feed as the humans singled out the weakest link. I squinted at the viewport, studying their selection. The enemy ship's exterior had lost its shine, and its armor didn't look as threat. Captain Monroe's voice pierced the air, booming and authoritative.
shot off.
Hold on. You could be in for a rough ride. Your belated father paid off. Tracking those as well. A straight time it backed our exterior, though they did little more than superficial damage. Terran ship design diverged slightly from the Federation, which meant the Greys hadn't learned down the weaknesses. The Primates held much more intelligence about the Archer than the other way around. Around us, you might see investigation or periphery. I couldn't tell who was saying. The clash of two species of bombing of the cradle ground to a halted as every ship was drawn away to the west. Waters a damn miracle. It's easy to forget the Earth was developed FDR a few months ago, and I'm used. Imagine how our spacecraft helping to respond to the flurry of missiles. Strong quad defenses took out most of our firepower, with a handful detonated against the Arctic armor. The rival ship struggled to regain its bearings and was unable to return fire with its own munitions. While dazed and possibly with navigational troubles, initial assault out the vessel, one of its compatriots seeking battle. I could feel the roar of our engine as we gave chase at full speed. The technicians at the weapon station were racing to get the shot off, obliterating the grade with plasma with a stylish finish. The enemy sensed that they were about to be nailed by the Railgun and yanked their nose skyward. The units failed to compensate for the change of course, and our plasma stream missed the mark. Reptilian have to reload. Worse, they succeeded.
Full speed toward the UNS Lovecraft.
All of flight pushed to their limit. The state-of-the-art fresh shot keeping pace with us even at our max. Back to what they were used to, chasing an enemy that knew they would on their heels like everyone else. Bullets despite knowing full battle with the grey shields for the everything in our arsenal like that. My sensors told me that both Arctic ships had us target locked, and that couldn't be a good omen. On screen, the Allied UNS Lovecraft reported toward us. The flashy blue crest on its hull demonstrated it wasn't designed for camouflage. The rectangular ship with synchronous retractable doors suggested it could be transported smaller craft. This huge ship was an unseemly clump of mass and glue. And the faint didn't hide that it was a very big crowd. Some of their ships are definitely modified by real models. But this one, this screams humanity, I thought.
Progressive maneuvers are infeasible.
Understood.
Manan replied, her voice icy calm.
Brace for impact.
My claws sank into the iron. All alarm. An imminent threat on their lives should at least rattle anyone. I knew that these predators could feel fear from Marcel's responses to me. Plasma snaked the waters, coming to devour our metallic shell. The white-hot blur Captain Socrates as the force reached the bridge. The overhead light snapped off from an electrical short circuit, and baseball lighting provided a needed glow. On the ground, their injuries. Alarms warned that structural integrity was compromised. Atmosphere was venting from the rear segment, which would require repairs if we survived this battle.
Yep. Mr. Christie felt fruit creams were perfect for birthdays. All on the top of the list.
Miss Rosinante, you all right?
Shorty voice.
Lovecraft. We could use a hand.
You heard that. Extra repairs.
Stuck it down before getting in their line of sight. The Lovecraft powered up twin railguns in its broad hull, undeterred by the energy demands. Like the newfangled Archer wisened up to the peril of his life. As time slowed its pace, Terran Plasma was already in transit. Two simultaneous beams blazed stars on both flanks, connected with several key systems. Out of commission. UN pilots steered the Lovecraft toward the original Archer and deployed missiles on target. With that knowledge of water from our side, confidence was restored within the bridge. Several of Ewan's eyes glowed with the possibility of killing. Inbound parcel, the weapon station coaxed our ship's railgun back online. A plasma beam barreled toward its target. Told me that the enemy was toast before it arrived. Some intuition sensed that the momentum had shifted in our favour, and the Terrans didn't need a second chance to capitalize. Collapsed. The scorched metal split open from side to side. With its weapon systems knocked offline, the Archer couldn't missile barrel. The vessel exploded in an orange bird. Metallic resonance. Comment from our allies.
Well enough to respond to another distress signal. Smith sailing.
Captain Monaghan offered her thanks over the comms before reviewing the damage to our vessel. It wasn't quite as extensive as I would expect. There were some nasty wounds across the ship's body, but all major systems were functional. As long as there were no issues funneling power to weapons and propulsion, we were still in the fight. The human officer straightened.
Navs, bring us closer to the planet. Our structural integrity is weakened, so we're going to play a supporting role.
I lowered my head for a moment, trying to cleanse some of the fear chemicals from my system. The exhilaration of killing the Agsa was lost beneath raw sensation. The burning in my chest was making it difficult to breathe, as if I was walking the line with cardiac arrest. While the predators breathing down my neck were dangerous and untamed, I was thankful they were at the helm. A human split-second decision-making under duress was clearly better than mine. Our brush with death struck more fear into my heart than any of the surrounding crewmates. And we are considered exceptionally brave at home, I mused. I suppose keeping it together enough to function is what we consider stoicism. Our vessel curved the winding path through the battlefield, avoiding a sore confrontation with any lurking Archer. It was sobering to see that several dozen UN indicators had flickered out in our sensors. I hoped those measurements were erroneous, or that each fallen had at least taken 2 enemies with them. The good news was that we had numbers. That advantage was minimized in clashes involving the Federation, and fleets often fell into disarray at the first sign of incoming fire. A bold charge like the Terrans were attempting was nigh unthinkable. We lost the psychological war before we ever thought of the physical one.
The sensors. Pick out an enemy that's showing signs of critical damage.
Captain Monahan nodded at the viewport, a thoughtful look on her face.
We don't want anyone to limp off and nurse their wounds.
On it! The technician answered. My eyes turned toward the cradle, and homesickness burgeoned in my chest. Beneath the tranquil blue exterior, I knew the ground was ashen and lifeless. The Archer ships gliding above the atmosphere menaced the skies. They were locked in combat with the humans now, but if our mission failed, they would return to their bombing in a heartbeat. A dark rectangular object which burned away from the planet's globe caught my attention. There was only one Archer ship that would flee from the heart of battle. My heart sank into my stomach, and I realized which target the Terrans had to choose. It was a small mercy for the souls on board. I leapt to my paws, ignoring the bile rising in my throat. Terminate the hostile labeled A9241 on your sensors. Please. It's on an ascent course departing from the cradle.
Hold on. Why that particular ship?
Monahan asked. My met her steady gaze. It's a cattle ship. It cannot be allowed to leave the system. Put those Khajiits out of their misery. I beg you.
There are innocent hostages on that ship.
Alderson. Over 140 years of Canadian craftsmanship.
We don't kill civilians whenever it's possible to avoid it.
But there are fates much worse than death. Humans, please tell me you're logical enough to understand. There are children on there, and I know you care for them. You're saving hundreds of people from an existence you cannot imagine. The captain stood at her own readout and waved the first officer over for a brief conference. I didn't know what she was discussing with him. It was an easy decision to me. Their host words gave the Greys time to get away. Maybe these predators did have stunted morality if they couldn't discern the lesser evil here. Forget the letter of the law. Monahan's head snapped up.
Sovlin, how many Archers do you expect are on board?
I don't know. It's not like anyone's ever been on one of their ships, I growled. But, their landing parties are usually around 2 to 3 dozen per group.
That seems manageable. I'll put together a breach team and we'll send a shuttle to board them. All we need is to lock up propulsion so they're dead in the waters.
The proposition was so simple, yet it almost moved me to tears. I couldn't believe these savage beasts would attempt a rescue mission made battle at grave peril to their own personnel. From how the UN captain reacted, it was her first instinct. The thought hadn't crossed my mind to think of those Khajiits as anything but gone. As the officers began assembling a flight crew, I realized there was a foundation of genuine trust forming. The idea that humanity would want the sapient livestock for themselves had barely crossed my mind. I'd begun to believe that this conquering species would help us, just as they had with our refugees. Captain Monahan barked orders to the bridge personnel and began scrounging what energy they could for the plasma railgun. There was no time to await battle, and most UN ships were preoccupied regardless.
Oh, my handsome boy!
Of the cattle belt, so that it wouldn't be shot down while we were trying to seize it. If reinforcements arrived down the line, that would be a bonus.
Sovlin, I'm going to offer my name for the boarding party.
Hatred radiated from Carlos as his gaze scorched toward the viewport.
I'm a foot soldier after all. I'd like a crack at those grey freaks.
The humans' pent-up rage seeped out as they contemplated the terrorizing foe. Hunger trickled into their stances and snarls. I could almost feel its burning on through their veins. Wild, untapped anger spurred the primates to action and demanded retribution for the cruelty they perceived. They're channeling their predatory energy, but they're still in control of themselves somehow, even in hunting mode. I can't imagine the intrusive thoughts it puts in their heads. Our ship raced toward the Archer's transport, gaining on the clunky object. Cattle vessels did have external weapons, but they were more limited than their warship counterparts. However, their internal armory wouldn't be deficient by any metric. They were equipped with the tools to eviscerate a city. This wasn't going to be an easy task for my human allies. You're all so noble and fearsome, I growled. Captain Monaghan, let me accompany your team. Please. The captain raised her eyebrows.
Why would I do that? So the only Federation asset we have can be KIA.
KIA?
Killed in action.
Oh, I won't get in your way. If you manage to free those Khajiits, you'll need me to stop a stampede. They're not going to be in their right minds. You'll see why. Monaghan's rosy lips twitched and I could sense the unspoken question on her tongue. After witnessing our lack of composure during their initial landing, she wasn't sure I'd be in my right mind. It was a valid question, honestly. Charging through an enclosed space surrounded by Axer and gunfighting would break most Khajiits. The mere sight of binocular eyes pumped dread through my veins and made my spines bristle. It was a constant effort to push that aside, that I could power through it in most cases. My fury toward the Greys had to be enough to override it. And I tried to show my determination through teeth baring, raising my claws in a threatening manner. She sighed, rubbing their forehead.
Very well. Don't fuck this up. And, for the love of God, don't die.
Understood, Mom, I answered. Just, if the mission fails, please take out that ship. No matter who's on board.
They won't make it out of this system. Not on my watch.
A wave of livid excitement almost swept me off my feet as I eyed the cattle vessel in the viewport. Few people met an Archer face to face and lived to tell the tale. Insertion into an enemy ship could end in complete catastrophe. Such a feat would be unheard of. My predatory companions either didn't realize or didn't care how risky their stunt was. The eager weapons station pinpointed their target, plasma arc across the void. My nostrils twitched with anticipation. I was raring to go, same as the predators. This role was a pitiful attempt to atone for my crimes, but at least I felt certain I was on the right side. Any way I could assist the humans, I was going to chip in.
With perfect flavor in every bite of Pringles. It's a taste you can't let go.
Memory transcription subject, Captain Sovlin, Federation Fleet Command. Date, standardized human time, October 6th, 2136. The bulletproof vest afforded to me by the predators was snug around my spines, but nearly fell off my shoulders. Its shape was not designed for the returned Khajiit species. The slender curvature of the human spine was a polar opposite, evolved for grace and flexibility. I knew the armor might save my life, but I wish I waited longer to don it. My bristles were being compressed at irritating angles, and the nearest soldiers seemed annoyed by my inability to sit still. The humans were sandwiched together in the shuttle, brushing shoulders with each other. I was glad to be at the end, so I could lean toward the wall. Samantha traded places with Carlos halfway through the ride. She bore an obvious disdain for me, but the male guard had enough of my fidgeting. Many of the general's soldiers curled their lips in contempt as well. I wasn't winning any popularity contests with these predators. I was grateful we were only a minute out from the cattle vessel. Did we succeed at paralyzing the Archer transport? I asked the female chaperone. Her eyelashes fluttered in annoyance.
Yes. We are not listening to the damn announcements.
Relax, Sam. It was an innocent question.
Carlos sighed.
I'm sure he just zoned out. You feel sorry for the racist war criminal?
A soldier called out. I saw a few humans nod their heads in agreement, which caused me to lower my gaze. There wouldn't be many tears shed by anyone other than the UN brass if the Arks are going to be down today. Not that I blamed them. An honourable death wasn't the worst thing I could think of. Dying scared me more than death. I wish I had a weapon so I could actually help. I don't want to stay back and let them do all the fighting. Well, that's great news, I said, ignoring the jab. Can I have a gun? No, a chorus of voices answered in unison. I waved my claws dismissively. Worth a shot. The shuttle lurched beneath my paws, and my vest pressed harder against my spines. There was going to be some light bruising tomorrow if I lived past this battle. Our craft latched onto an outer wing, attaching itself to the immobilized transport. We inched forward so that our airlock stood across from theirs. A vac-suited predator slipped into our emergency airlock, and I strained to see his movements through the window. The Terranon filled the walkway on our side, then floated across to the Archer vessel with a gentle push. All that tied him to us was a thin rope on his waist. He tested the red lever with a feeble hand and confirmed that it wasn't locked. The human nodded to himself and used some sort of suction technology to adhere the tunnel to the enemy ship. His feet clicked onto the ground as the artificial gravity initiated. Once the corridor was sealed from the vacuum, he raised his thumb to the rest of us. I didn't understand the signal, but the others took it as a go-ahead. The UN soldiers trundled out of the ship, wielding massive rifles. While the predators possessed few natural gifts, they were saddled with a truckload of gear. Their bodies were clad head to toe in black armor, including a hard shell atop their heads. Once they shoved reflective goggles over their eyes, humans looked like homogeneous invasive machines.
Stick behind us, Sovlin.
Samantha rose to her feet, falling into the rear of the pack.
We can't leave you here to get captured. Take cover and stay out of the way till you're needed.
Silence fell over our entourage as the primates crossed the cattle ship's threshold. I couldn't help but notice the humans' slinking posture, as though they were stalking prey in a shaded forest. They were couched to a fraction of their normal height, with steps that were furtive and calculated. Their guns swiveled in every direction, searching for a target to pounce on. With a hint of reluctance, my paws followed them down the tunnel. There were some short bursts of gunfire as they pointed the overhead Archer full of lead. I suppressed my knowing got the drop on them. My attention switched to the reptilian interior, taking mental notes of its facilities. The Federation would kill for intelligence like this. The atmosphere was musty, but the lighting was rich and plentiful. The hygiene of the enemy ship surprised me as well. It didn't reek of rotten flesh or blood. I guess those savages understood basic disease transmission after all. We followed the entryway a few hundred paces before we reached a bend in the path. The team leader poked his head around the corner. Ducked back behind cover, hugging his weapon to his chest.
8 or 9 hostiles arming themselves and taking positions.
He hissed.
They're waiting for us.
We have more numbers than that, but the Archer have a clear line of sight. They're going to nail us as soon as we advance. The human rolled a metal canister across the floor, which released a milky plume of smoke. Irritants dispersed through the hallway, and I sprinted. In the haze of silver mist, the Terrans stepped out from behind their refuge. The Archers sprayed bullets in our direction, hoping to connect with something. These sounds helped the humans key in on their positions, and they spewed their own rounds back in return. The Terrans seemed to fare better in low visibility with their remarkable adaptiveness. The silhouetted movement I glimpsed in the mist suggested a few Greers were hit. The smoke dissipated. Supply cart and popped his gun over the top. Samantha sprawled on the floor beside him. Her hands were steady as she gazed down the scope and fired as an Archer attempting to fall back. I didn't know the Greers could retreat.
I imagine down that main staircase we'll find living quarters, the cattle pens and the bridge.
Samantha growled.
They don't want us to get to anything vital.
The female human stood to get a better look and inched forward to join another UN cluster. My eyes drifted to the Archer she shot, who was bleeding profusely. The angry bastard was still twitching until another Terran soldier unloaded a clip into his head. That was overkill. Hey, I wasn't judging. Samantha caressed her right survivors were regrouping with their brethren. The Terrans blinding every combatant called the Archer off guard. It forced them to make concessions and await backup. The Greys haven't fought a true enemy in a long time, have they? I mused. They haven't been on the back foot for a second in this war. Our weakness has made them complacent. There was no sound from their presumed Archer position, and I guess they had to wait.
Your window's still open.
Whether they were coached by instinct, training, or generational experience, I did not know. A grating voice rumbled over the PA.
Greetings, fellow hunters. I take it you don't appreciate that we, stole your catch.
Several human predators startled and their attention shifted. My jaw almost dropped to the floor. The Archer never conversed so eloquently with us. We translated their dialects at first contact. My lifetime, it was not words for greetings or appreciate.
We would have offered to split the hole if we'd realized our intrusion sooner.
The Archer continued.
You made things much easier for us, and we're not entirely ungrateful. You already learned that Khajiits make excellent slaves, judging by your companion.
I bared my teeth and sensed that this monstrosity thought I was a human plaything. While I was a Terran prisoner, that was a far cry from servitude and degradation. There was nothing I had been forced to do. My pointing to a blinking red light on the ceiling. There was a camera tracking our movements, and granting the enemy a full view of our advance. He raised only his middle finger, and several of his counterparts copied the gesture. I didn't understand what that meant either, but I guessed it was something hateful.
Don't fuck yourselves.
The male guard shouted. Probably that. Note to self.
To be young race again. Let's get that aggression out of our systems. Then, after, we should pull our resources to bring the lesser species to view.
The reptile sounded almost disappointed, as though it would enjoy a test of strength.
Anything else would be wasteful when our interests are aligned. As loathsome as sharing is, there's enough food to go around.
Did those demons just offer to ally with humanity against the Federation? My blood boiled at the thought. It had to be a trap, since everyone knew the Arks were incapable of interspecies cooperation. They couldn't get along with themselves. The Greys were locked in a global bloodbath, which jeopardized their world's survival when they found them. The prospect of the Terrans our factions and threats could still reside within the...
Hey, what's wrong? Do you need something? Alright, I'm gonna be right back. I don't think anybody's here anyway. That's okay. Alright, let's go get you some snacks. You dirty. There's a dead deer in our ditch this morning. Or I'm not sure how long it was there. I just noticed it today.
Federation. With humans few sided with monsters as their own. Prejudice and answered the question.
A dead deer along with the front of someone's car. Park.
Being clenched around his rifle. The soldier at the Adance's forefront raised a fist, and our posse shuffled to a halt astride of the staircase. Odds were, the enemy was gathering in the deck beneath us. Watches clattered down the incline. The resulting explosion devastated the vicinity. I heard down the first steps and wanted to another explosive toss. That should be enough to get the enemy to move back. The primates bounded down the last of the staircase and jammed down their firing triggers. I followed Samantha's movements and tried to keep my head low. We took refuge behind a trash can in what appeared to be a mess hall. There were blood-speckled trays and reading materials left abandoned on the tables. What do you know? Eating sentience is a communal activity, I guess. Knocks of gunfire covered the walls around it and took down several humans. Other Terrans stepped in as soon as they saw a counterpart fell, dragging them to safety. Attempted to stymie the blade. So many charged. Our predators warrior class with 4 shoes-deep bonds. How they could even think of their fellow man during the insanity of battle was beyond me. The amount of arcs had tickled every flight and overstimulation made my head swim. Several Ratchetian eyes on me. From their vantage point, Denner just walked in front of a firing squad. Never seen so distracted by me. Dying agony, I remember. Samantha snorted.
Gee, thanks.
Not you. You're different.
Whatever you...
A stray bullet grazed the female's headgear. She sensed it clip her cap and fell back as a knee-jerk reaction. The soldier dragged herself back up against the waistbin with erratic breathing. After taking a moment to collect her wits, she worked to get her rifle situated. Guilt flashed through my mind, realizing my distraction almost killed her. Calling my guards friends would be a stretch, since that required a mutual respect. But they had become familiar faces, and I didn't wish for anything to happen to them. There had to be some way for me to help. Carlos was crouched a few paces ahead. As I saw an archer duo attempting to encircle them. I shouted to warn the units, but the deafening pops of sitting here and doing nothing wasn't an option. Samantha was too rattled from her encounter to react in time. The mangled archer caught me out by a grenade of units at the staircase caught my eye. A cruising thought left in my head as I glimpsed the bloody gun in its grip.
Sovlin, what the fuck are you?
The female human began. I dashed out behind her. Prying the firearm from the beast's lifeless grasp, I tried to line up the shot. And my claws quivered too much. Fired off the first Carlos's companion in the back of the neck. The other humans whirled around, but they couldn't react in the half second it would take to execute them all. Gritting my teeth, I tried to lock my wrists. I released several rounds, praying I wouldn't accidentally hit the Terrans. 2 of my 5 bullets nailed the first archer, and it tumbled to the floor. Its pounder stumbled over the body, which gave the primate enough time to swivel around. An unfamiliar Terran blew its head off with panicked motion. Carlos turned his masked skull, looking for the source of the shots that set. His gaze faced me as I spitted back to Samantha. The female snatched the firearm from my grip, tucking it under her arm. "You're really going to take the gun away?" I groaned. "I saved..." She offered a grudging sigh.
You saved Carlos's life.
"I'm good at killing. For a G. Let me help."
Not a chance. Don't even think about pulling a stunt like that again.
I chewed at my claws and leaned back against the wall. Several stood about the edge of the he had me. But it was evident Archer marksmen had wicked accuracy. About half of our active allies appeared to be nursing injuries, which spoke to an unrivaled ability to persist through pain. But then again, I couldn't tell when crimson bloodstains were theirs. race had suffered their fair share of casualties too. Their numbers were whittled down to 10. The Reptilians were prepared to defend off a larger contingent. The firearms skidded in front, followed by a series of others. A handful of archers rose to their full height, watching the primate's next move. The humans paused their balance, suspicion glowing in their eyes. What in the name of the Protector was this?
New Mini Wheats Minis. Half the size, all the flavor.
Memory transcription subject, Captain Sovlin, Federation. Time. Resounding shouts caught through the air as the humans rounded on the alarmed enemy. Most were some variants of Rayman. There was no question. Complying with the barked orders and cuffing themselves without any clear trickery. There was no snarling or sudden movements either. Perhaps this inexplicable behavior was the primates' bellowing voices shook me to the for the bit. Scaring the boarders away with blooded fangs and piercing eyes would have been a vital tactic for a change. All the same, I didn't. The Federation never managed to capture the Predator. Exercising futility. Amusement seemed to be the only motivation to destroy our worlds. Accepting the Terrans as thinking people was one thing, but the answer were clear-cut in their villainy. I wonder what Captain Monaghan will do with the prisoners, I muttered. Samantha offered a non-committal shrug.
Not my call.
Not mine either, and that's probably a good thing.
Carlos bounded up to us, raising his goggles.
We're going to have some guys make sure they sit nice and pretty for now. Probably sedate them, take them as prisoners.
But if it was your call, what would you do? I asked.
I'd put them in the cattle pens, right where they belong.
He growled, a malicious gleam in his eyes.
I wondered if the greys would taste like gator, or maybe they'd make a good pair of boots.
The bold-faced talk of eating another sentient left me taken aback. It wasn't something I thought humankind would contemplate, even for those monsters. I understood what Carlos was saying, though. That Schadenfreude was something we had in common. The guard's statement was pushing a little far, but I was happy he was being more open with me. Maybe Carlos was very in his life. He seemed more friendly toward me. My eyes studied the arts of business. They still look hideous as boots. My claws touching as much as I would love to see the Greys get a full dose of their own medicine. The intelligence of strong-willed military from before another world, that was worth keeping these arts alive for a bit. Besides, they deserve more suffering than a quick execution. Scientific study. I would inflict as much agony as I could. Use for it.
The answer to that. Remember why he's here. You two have fun with your chat.
I lowered my gaze watching the female guards.
Hello. We're taking a break from Frankenstein tonight because I don't want to. So I'm working on some bats. I got Halloween. And I got Halloween. And I got Halloween. And I got Halloween.
Somehow, I think you might be the only species who could understand why I did that. I sighed. The human crossed his arms, a confused glint in his eyes.
I understand why, if we were the
My
accident.
stomach hurts.
You didn't even consider or research Marcel Fraser's story. Nor did you listen to the Vanille that backed him up.
I did research. The Federation's database pegged you as a species of genocidal conquerors who do nothing but war. My spines bristled as I recalled the atrocities in the original briefing. Then, I watched videos of humans gassing children and nuking your own city. And you lecture us about stampedes. I still don't get you.
But that history makes a lot of us angry too. We're capable of much of what they are.
The Venlo's conscious for days. Communications chased away at one point and took every Federation visitor hostage after they met you. It was an obvious conclusion.
of glows in the dark.
It seemed so much like the answer. The only unknown predator. The guard didn't say anything, but his outward relaxation showed that my point landed. He pursed his lips and scratched the back of his neck. It was obvious. My soldiers might overhear. Let's just say by the time Slanik woke up, it was too late. Carlos, I can't live with what I've done. Not since he did home. I don't expect anyone's forgiveness. The predator patted my shoulder once with a surprising amount of gentleness. No words tumbled from his lips, and that was more consolation than I deserved. The guilt enshrouding my heart eased for a brief moment. I realized how badly I had needed one of the humans to understand. Carlos cleared his throat, and his gaze dialed in on the arts of prisoners. A human had a boot planted against one's tail with a gun barrel pressed against its skull. The reptilian's eyes were wild with what I would think was fear in any other species. It looked young and scrawny, which might be why it was singled out for intimidation.
What did you do with the kids?
The UN soldier's voice was low, charged with a venomous undercurrent.
Where are they?
Kids? The actor stammered.
The Gajeeds. Cattle you said.
They're in the cargo bay.
And where the fuck is that? Show us.
Carlos gestured for me to follow, since my conclusion was only permitted to pacify the captives. My uneasy brain resented the march into a predator's lair. UKG corpses dangled from the side. One carcass was noticeably smaller than the others. It looked about the size of my daughter. The last time I saw her alive, that child was dissected and served to the group as an entree, just like my sweet Harley. Those vile predators, they see us as a feast. Disgust touched a path at my esophagus, and I spewed vomit onto the tile. The way Carlos's cheeks were arching and puffed out, I think he was barely keeping his own lunch down. It was a relief to see the clawless predator looking squeamish, especially after hearing him ponder how the oxer tasted. Heaving sounds behind me suggested that disgust was the overarching reaction within the Terran ranks. More frightful than they anticipated. It was baffling the predator's version to go. All evolutionary knowledge suggested that
Look, man. I can't see that. They're so brutal. Senseless.
Deep breath. By the way, why did your worries split up? I asked Carl. Doesn't it?
Officers older than the bridge, and we need to sweep the ship anyways.
You didn't want to be anywhere near me. Scrawny answer staggered to the kitchen's rear wall and rubbed the body floor of the partition. The reflective metal formed two double doors wide enough to fit a few spacecraft side by side. I considered that the prisoner was deceiving us, since that was their modus operandi. But it made too much sense for the prey to be right next to the mess hall. The Terran handler jabbed his gun barrel into the Arx's temple.
Open the fucking door, or we'll find out what colour your brains splatter.
It swallowed and waved a paw in front of the motion sensor. I half expected an automated turret to descend from the ceiling and start cutting down our ranks. The humans tensed as well, clearly not trusting the beast. Despite the UN soldiers inched forward. There was no reinforcing army amassed inside, for all our misgivings. The cavern before us was devoid of arms. Of course, the reptiles wouldn't leave their prized possession unattended. Some in one Arxer counted the first platform, which allowed it to overlook the assembled prey. It wheeled around, slowed by the same narrow vision as the Terrans. The Grey couldn't reach for its weapon before it was obliterated. I watched as the monster swung to the floor. Its skin was black. Its reptile it gouged in the glowing black at its goo, but I couldn't bring myself to face the livestock yet. My gaze instead fell on our predatory captive. I wanted to see how it reacted to the death of the counterpart. A brief gasp slipped from its maw, and those diabolical pupils lingered on its fallen comrade for a full second. A full second longer than they should have.
No heads up about the guard.
The UN soldier slammed his rifle butt into the Ark's prisoner's temple. He snickered as its hind legs buckled and it collapsed on the floor.
Ah, shit. My hand slipped. That's what everyone saw, isn't it?
The other humans nodded as they studied the cattle enclosure in horrified silence.
2,
My reluctant eyes fell on the scene,
3,
and a new
4,
fury surged through my
5.
spines. Khajiits were packed in a pen like animals to the brink of suffocation. I could see faces squished up against the barbed wire mesh, and paws scrabbling for a way out. The guards must have fed the cattle by throwing seeds and leaves down from the walkway. Water was available through a few small basins on the rim. Many people seemed to have given up and were lying unresponsive on the floor. The squealing of the children was what really stabbed at my heart. They sounded so high-pitched and frantic.
Help us! Please!
A desperate voice wailed from the corral's epicenter. Thankfully, people were shushed by the counterparts who divulged that the entrance were humans.
The humans!
There was no line of sight from within the throng of Khajiits. All they knew was the borders weren't Arks,
Nope.
and not the Greys had succumbed to them. The last they saw of humanity was Terran soldiers dropping into cradle settlements. If they hadn't witnessed the heroic sacrifices on the surface, it would be logical to assume humans orchestrated the Ark's raid. These people must think they were going from one predator's clutches to another. One Khajiit straight his face against the mesh.
Captain Soflin! They captured you! You should know better than to let them take you alive!
My mouth was dry. I was too horrified by the atrocities of this vessel to find words. This felt like a waking nightmare. It was all I could do not to sink against the nearest human's boots and break down. The Khajiit took my shocked state as affirmation of his fears, howling with despair. Carlos shuffled forward, kneeling by the cage's edge. He tugged at the material which did not budge, and bared his teeth in obvious frustration. The muscles in his shoulders were quivering with a primal rage that he was struggling to restrain. The predator couldn't bear the sobbing pigs any more than I could. A growl emanated from his chest, and his brown eyes narrowed to slits. The compulsion to break the sapient livestock out of the cage all but possessed him. There was a franticness in his motions as Samantha passed him a cable cutter. Carlos clipped the first strand, and other humans ambled in to help peel back the material. The Terran's haste was enough to snap me out of my trance. If I didn't get through to the Khajiit, they would stampede right over their saviors, and mauling wasn't the way to reward the gentle beast for their compassion. The humans are here as allies of the Khajiit Union. Let them help you, I croaked.
The warlike predators who invaded our home and caused the Archer to capture us as allies. Tell those demons to make their lives believable, puppet.
Came a sneering reply. So this was how it felt, trying to convince a skeptical audience to see past that abominable appearance. Carlos's efforts paused for a moment, and he shared a glance with his counterparts. The gash they carved in the barbed wire was almost wide enough to rip out an opening. How could anyone read malice into their actions? Nobody ever just started off seeing humans as people. Nobody accepted their story at face value or treated them as equals. In that moment, I felt sorry, angry for the alien predators. I stormed toward the pen. The ground invasion occurred because we were planning to bomb Earth. I would know. Preventing their own extinction is self-defense. The fact that they risked their lives to save you in spite of that shows their empathy runs deeper than ours.
Predators don't feel empathy. The Great Protector teaches they are cursed creatures doomed to live in eternal hunger and bloodlust.
The Great Protector? Carlos mouthed. Arguing with the fairy tale wasn't my ideal scenario, but antagonizing the religious was only going to make them shut down. There might be a shred of truth to Axiom anyways. I had seen the Terrans tap into their aggression multiple times. Humans used their higher emotions to redirect bloodlust to proper outlets, but sometimes their agency waned. My eyes swept over the group. These predators are intelligent enough to override that, to control it. The Van Lille did experiments that prove they can bond with prey animals, and that they feel pain for those of us in suffering. It is irrefutable evidence by every scientific metric.
What? That's not possible. You're saying
humans use their hunger to protect the weak from threats. Much like your goddess, they formed laws and morality that are civilized, honorable even. If they are cursed and trying to break free, wouldn't the Protector command us to help? The UN soldiers took back the spiky wall and surveyed the traumatized Khajiit. My people didn't rush on their saviors in a panic, though many shoved their way toward the escape. The alternative was to remain in Arksa custody, and the Arksa were a known commodity. Even if the Terrans were just as evil, it was difficult for them to be worse. Several humans extended gloved hands, hoisting the victims onto solid ground. Herbivore food and clean water awaited the rescued. the special care they gave to the young didn't escape my notice. Samantha's eyes glowed as she began to spoon-feed an emaciated infant. I had never seen such a toothy snarl on her face, or heard her speak so softly. This skirmish hadn't been to contest the cattle claim at all. I wondered what the Arxa would think when they realised the predators they viewed as equals despised them as much as the rest of the galaxy. Whether humanity's interrogations turned up anything useful or not, it would be priceless to be a fly on the wall.
Two. Okay. 1, 2, okay.
Prime Big Deal Days are coming October 10th and 11th. With 2 days of big savings exclusively for Prime members, you'll feel like a VIP.
Right this way. Your hairdryer deal is waiting.
Sweet. Deals from clothes to electronics. It's on Prime Big Deal Days October 10th and 11th.
Memory transcription subject, Governor Tarver of the Venlil Republic. Date, standardized human time, October 6th, 2136. In the month we had been away, the predators seemed to have established their presence on Venlil Prime. Teeming masses of humans with cameras awaited the shuttle. The increase in personnel was noticeable. Venlil journalists were squeezed right next to the formidable beasts and didn't pay their counterparts much attention. They must have done extensive work with the Terrans to be so casual. Several individuals in the UN's Navy Blue welcomed the new species and offered polite introductions. Their eyes were concealed in fluoro-coloured visors, which was a clear attempt to look as non-threatening as possible. They paused as they saw the Sivkid diplomat bolt away from the crowd. Axel's snowy pelt vanished into the thick bushes around the Governor mansion. Ambassador Noah took a step in that direction as though he wanted to follow her. I placed a paw on his arm and shook my head. Chasing after her will only make it worse. At any rate, you need to speak with your people immediately, I muttered. Concern flickered in his brown eyes.
Is something wrong? You've been subdued. You learned something when they answered.
As soon as we entered FTL communication range, I had relayed word of the Federation delegation through government channels. Chosen patched up the ship enough to travel, but affirmed that the cooling shaft showed signs of external tampering. I didn't convey those details over the network, since I didn't want the UN's embassy greeting to involve guns and interrogation. The Venlil government brought Terran officials into the loop and related some startling developments in the Gajid War. However, the immediate concern was that both parties seemed surprised by our contact. That meant Grissel's ship never reached its destination. Without a lengthy delay, they should have arrived well before we crossed Venlil space. At my request, the Terrans deployed a search and rescue team to follow their flight path. I kept the knowledge to myself to avoid a panic, but the worry was nagging at me. What would happen to our relations with those 6 patients if something had gone wrong? My ears pressed against my head. I learned several things which are all troubling. Let me brush off the media, and then we will join Cam in the briefing room. The camera-wielding primates drew closer with a clamour, and Venlil whipped questions as well. My instincts protested, allowing noisy predators to crowd me in every direction. The humans were more aggressive than I was used to, with our own reporters. I breathed a silent sigh of relief as they granted enough space for us to pass.
Hey, 1, 2,
I think some of
3.
the human journalists' bad habits. Their ambush tactics have rubbed off on these Venlil. Stars. I politely request that you lower the volume of your speech, especially when you are this close. My ears are more sensitive than yours, but it carries more intimidation than I believe you intend. I barked into the microphones. The crescendo of Terran questions died down, which lessened the encounter's intensity. At least if they were all badgering us, someone had the good sense to tell them to avoid the new diplomats. We might have other visitors running into the foliage if this ensnarement was attempted on anyone else.
What happened at the Federation Summit?
An insistent voice called out. I am behind on everything that's happened in the past month, so I'm not taking general questions right now, I said, forcing a level cadence. For now, you can report to Earth that 11 species offered to open diplomatic relations with you.
Only 11?
Noah Williams, how was your treatment at their ends? Is the rest of the Federation in war with humanity? How do you think this will affect human-Venlil relations?
Let me finish, I spat. Over 100 species voted to ally with you against the Arxa. An even larger sector are either undecided or opted for an isolationist policy. While these may not be the results you hoped for, I see them as a positive step forward from wishing your species extinct. However,
the Krakatau fleet are amassing warships with support from several neighbors in every border station that faces our space.
How can we trust that these public stances are intended as deception?
You might find your questions resolved if my answers could reach their conclusion, I growled with frustration. I was about to explain that 38 member states would not budge on their extermination position and may seek a war of extinction. The Krakotl were one of these, a rather vocal one. Agitated whispers cycled through the crowd. I knew there was the half second to detect the humans to process their information before they'd launch into a new inquisition. The questions would fall into predictable categories. How Earth should defend itself from these threats if diplomatic resolutions are off the table, and what assistance the Venlil would provide. I'm going to discuss with your generals and my generals how to handle this now. Perhaps our new allies will help us. I switched my tail toward the Zerulean diplomat who had settled down atop a human shoe. The Predator looked taken aback, but didn't move his foot. No matter what, we will figure this out together. The Venlil will stand with humanity to the end. Now, excuse me. Noah grinned as he saw my irritated headshakes. The Terran bastard had clasped his hands behind his back and followed me to the governor's mansion. There was something in his eyes beyond amusement as his gaze bored into my skull. It almost came off as a predatory hunger, though for some reason it wasn't unnerving. The human held open the door, his stare never faltering as we walked into the briefing centre. That unblinking fixation was distracting. I wasn't sure if I wanted to tell him to break eye contact. It took a colossal effort to recall the planet-threatening reasons we were here. General Khan leapt from his chair.
Governor, Ambassador, we're all delighted you're back.
I took a seat next to him, and the Predator settled beside me. I would say it's good to be back, but in the month I've been gone, the Ghajiit cradle was glassed.
What?
Noah hissed.
Please don't tell me we did that.
From his dejected tone, it seemed like he considered that well within the realm of possibility. My certainty that there was another explanation wavered after his response. The UN's position against civilian casualties seemed set in stone at that initial briefing. Perhaps Maya was just saying what we wanted to hear, so we could obtain our aid.
The Oxa took advantage of the defenses being down. There was nothing we could do.
General Jones of the American clan growled.
We lost a considerable amount of our own troops trying to evacuate civilians.
I lowered my gaze. And the civilians you did evacuate are where?
Earth. Mostly refugee camps in New York.
My eyes just about bulged out of my skull. The humans thought it was a good idea to take a bunch of terrified refugees to a predator's homeworld, far away from their own territory. Those Ghajiits must be overwhelmed, and the optics of this were atrocious. It would have been a better solution to host them on Venlil Prime or transport them to a Ghajiit colony. General Zhao narrowed his eyes.
Governor, you look displeased. Do you not trust humans to be proper caregivers?
You misunderstand. Candidly, this is an absolute disaster, I grumbled. 52 species specified they were waiting for news from the cradle to determine their diplomatic position. When they hear it's being destroyed...
Don't blame humanity. She's right. I wouldn't be surprised if they accused us of coordinating with the Oxa.
Noah finished. A sigh slipped from my lips. The refugees are the cherry on top, as you say. When they hear you're keeping them in camps on Earth, they'll assume you're keeping them as cattle.
We have tons of footage showing our humanitarian efforts.
The Chinese general objected. And it's easy enough to dismiss that as staged propaganda. I bet anything the Krakotl will use this to gain public support for their attack, to smear you as slaving predators. Well, what was stopping the species on world from rescinding their diplomatic offer? The Mazik president was going to flip when he learned of the cradle's destruction. This was a grave setback to our progress with the friendly governments, and it would push most undecided factions toward animosity. At least I'd had a few hours to deliberate how to react to various scenarios. This was all news to Noah. The Terran ambassador shifted beside me, and I could sense his surprise at the war's developments. After witnessing the hatred on the Federation floor, he knew better than anyone I was right about their perspective.
The Secretary General understood the cradle's importance as a propaganda tool,
Jones said.
That's why we sent our first fleet on a liberation mission. We have a chance to defeat Boxer and retake the cradle. And those mission logs and the footage which Captain Sovlin provided to us from Ghajiit media sources might help mitigate any reputational damage.
Two items left out of it from that statement. The first being, the humans sent a large contingent of the Venlil ships that were donated to them to a slaughter. Attacking the Oxa was a foolhardy play, which I can't believe General Khan didn't object to. Predators or not, the UN had succumbed at every turn to the great superior army. Are they trying to leave both of our planets exposed, to lose everything we gave them? Since the fleet was already dead, there was no point even addressing that matter. I began to wonder if allying with humanity was a mistake. I hadn't thought it was suicidal. The second topic was the name Sovlin, which I couldn't be hearing right. Even under excruciating interrogation, it was tough to picture that Ghajiit giving humanity anything helpful. Had they captured him during the war? What terrible retribution had they inflicted to make him violate his principles? The Sovereign is in your custody. I blinked with concern as the human representatives nodded. Why does everyone ask that? Because we wouldn't blame you for killing him, General. I might venture he deserves the ultimate penalty. But how did he come into your possession?
He turned himself in after witnessing our soldiers fight back against the Auxer.
I see. Would it be an unreasonable request to ask for Sovereign to stand trial in a Vendel court? I would like him to answer for reckless endangerment and mistreatment of a Vendel citizen.
The UN is willing to discuss activities. Being handed over for a few years.
The female voice I didn't recognize piped up. This predator was seeking away from the generals and bore the keen visage of intelligence.
Eric Crumper, UN Secretary of Foreign Affairs, formerly with SETI.
That agency name rang a bell in my head. Humans desired friends among the stars long before their species was interstellar. Stories about aliens were abnormally prevalent in their culture. Some Terran scientists devoted their careers to scanning the skies for signals and cataloguing exoplanets that might be habitable. Noah and Sarah's flight on the Odyssey was charted by SETI researchers. Vendel Prime happened to be the 5th Earth-like world on their candidate list. It would make sense that those prescient astronomers would try to become politeness. Nice to meet you, Madam Secretary. I understand humans have the greatest claim to Sovereign, of course, but I don't want his treatment of Slanik to be overlooked. It's a bad precedent.
Agreed. I think it's a good idea for us to write out travel and extradition treaties. We've relied too heavily on goodwill between our species. This would nip any misunderstandings in the bud.
There were a lot of other details that needed to be ironed out. Trade, borders, intelligence sharing, joint military bases, and which foods were allowed within our domain. It was a daunting task since I had no idea how predators approach such matters. The fact that Earth technically fell in Vendel territory was a grievous issue I'd been tiptoeing around. On their home world, we do, even if we renounce that state between our two species. Of course, the Vendel Republic would never lay claim to the Sol system. The unfortunate reality was that we didn't have the authority to hand out parsec of space. The Federation would be hesitant to sign off on any territorial claims, and that was the best-case scenario. Recognizing the United Nations as a legitimate spacefaring entity would be acknowledging humans as equals, encouraging them to spread throughout the galaxy. I feared that our predator friends wouldn't take kindly to that fact, especially as they eyed colonial expansion initiatives. Decorous as humanity were, I didn't think they'd be happy sharing with their neighbors forever.
Speaking of misunderstandings,
Ambassador Noah rumbled.
myself and any human-allied species might have a target on our back. It appears our shuttle was sabotaged, and that almost resulted in a catastrophic drive failure.
General Jones chuckled.
I'm amazed the Xenos have the stones to think of subterfuge. They sure haven't shown it before now. The Fenlil have risked their entire existence to protect ours. Is that not courageous? Let's not insult our friends.
Secretary Quemper shot the American a warning look, then gave me an apologetic smile.
I'm sure that was not her intention, Governor.
Not to mention, there was a second ship of representatives coming here. They sent out a search party already. The astronaut's eyebrows shot up. He must be stunned by he discerned his thoughts with a half glance. It was uncanny at times how I felt like I could sense what was on that predator's mind.
Zwingli and humans are scouring the edges of Zerurian space now. We expect them back in comms range within the next few hours.
Zhao answered. Quemper tilted her head.
Is there something more you wanted from us?
We would like to talk. We had an uncanny amount of knowledge about the defect, but please, do so with tact, without drawing outside attention. The human officials shared a glance before consulting the encyclopedia of known species on their holopant. It must be difficult to recall the nuances and details of 300 races they'd never met before. Perhaps it would be
To collect him, since you wanted to slip under the radar.
Thank you. Listen, media silence for now, I said. We don't need this playing out in the court of public opinion. Quemper nodded.
I second that. Talk of conspiracies will sour any good news.
Silence fell over the room as my military advisor forwarded the request of the appropriate agencies. The Terrans were browsing the Autos file and seemed to home in on the details of their uplifting. It was easy to forget how new humans were to the galactic scene. As predators, they rarely seemed unprepared for anything. My eyes fell on my holopad awaiting the call that would bring news. It was unknown what happened to Rizal and his passengers, but there was a sinking feeling in my stomach when I thought about it. Our interspecies relations were in a delicate position to begin with. A tragedy was the least
humanity needed. It was in our best interest to hope the Koshian pilots got lost. Memory transcription subject, Governor Tarver of the Venlo Republic. Date, standardized human time, October 6, 2136. There is a heaviness in my heart as the 4 diplomats were ushered into the briefing room. The Mazik had been creating quite the scene outside, accusing his human hosts of kidnapping. Apparently no amount of time could prevent that. The Uplift's disappearance was noted within minutes. President Kupo's dramatic theories that the predators intended to poke and prod every diplomat were generating panic among the others. That meant we had to brief everyone about the sabotage and the missing craft. The information needed to be turned over to the media as soon as possible too, since Kupo's outburst occurred in front of live cameras. How could we persuade such a paranoid individual? His mind longed to believe that humanity was up to something. I wasn't sure how much of this briefing the Sith Kit would remember, given that she was drugged with a light sedative. The Mazik, who had been quite gentle with Axley, had to carry her into the room. The humans couldn't breathe without spooking the fluffy representative. Noah had accused the Sith Kit Grand Herd of having a poor choice of personnel, and I'd begun to agree. I should order her to return home and request that the herd send someone else. With behavior like this, it's impossible to establish any relations with their species. Tulsa was oddly quiet and waiting predators. Despite her disdain for uplifts, her snooty attitude slipped when Lalo disappeared from their ranks. The Navok had been trying to hawk planets with fine metals and microchips to any Terran that would listen, but now it interested. Even Chaucer looked curious at why the Yotulan vanished from their hands. What was going on? We had told him in no uncertain terms that someone on the ship could be involved. A scientist of the Zerulian's intellect might put the pieces together.
I knew from the beginning that we couldn't trust you predators.
Kupo spat as he took a seat on the floor.
You were just waiting to get us here to turn on us.
Chaucer's whiskers twitched.
You should wait to hear what they're going to tell you before you start with that nonsense. It's not what you think.
Wait, you know. So, Taba and Noah have been selecting who to spin their yarns with, who to hide things from.
Tulsa growled. The Mazik president flared his trunk.
Half the shit that comes out of a human's mouth is a lie. Who knows what they manipulate us, but I bet it's about control. All their species has shown they cared about his power.
Our diplomats fidgeted with their visors, the opposite of the rhetoric. This was their expectation when they greeted the landing party. I winced as I saw the faces. They lacked the poise and the patience of their diplomatic counterparts. It was tough for them to shrug off insults.
You know what? Fuck the Federation. You can fuck right back off to your ship.
General Zhao stood from his chair and leaned across the table toward the Mazik president.
All you care about is what a person's eyes are on their head.
General Jones reclined in her seat.
And these are the friendly species, Zhao. Who needs enemies with friends like these?
Huxley's chest was racked with sobs as the primate's tone escalated. The military humans shifted their annoyance to the sniveling animal. Their binocular eyes smoldered with indignation. The general's tolerance for predatory bigotry had been tested for the last time.
And you, with the white coat, you can't even look at us. Why are you here?
The Chinese general spat. Jones bared her teeth, intentionally pointing them at the Sith Kit.
Get a grip. You're embarrassing your race.
To be honest, if the blood of the humans animals it would make me crazy. When their jaw muscles were clenched, shot into their flesh. Flair made the protruding bones and bulging veins more obvious. Translucent skin confined the rays bubbling beneath the surface. I can tell they're in control, but I don't think any other alien can. That is enough. All of you are acting like children, I screeched. Let's agree that we've all messed up in one way or another. We shared our information with Chosen because he's the only one not looking for an excuse to spout predator nonsense. You lot just proved my point. Noah squeezed my paw under the table. Also, you guys tend to freak out at the slightest sign of danger. It was hard enough to keep everyone calm on the ship. The Navok diplomat sighed.
You get one chance to explain yourselves. The truth.
With a curling shaft malfunction.
We're trying to figure out who's responsible and hold them accountable.
Noah added. Tosser snorted.
Ha! I Why do you think it's little primitive Laulo?
The Terran ambassador tensed beside me. Clearly, recent events hadn't stopped his defensive reaction to any primitive jabs. I gave Noah a look that warned him not to interfere. He swallowed hard, then inhaled a series of deep breaths. This was not the time for him to give the Nivok an earful, especially when she was the most level-headed person here, not named Chosen. I offered a non-committal tail switch. We're suspicious enough to ask questions. It was plain to see from the representatives' faces that they were worried about how those questions were being asked. That's why the buttons on my security feed of the cell projector. Marcel was seated alone on a bench with his head in his paws. It was the Predator's suggestion to let him wait for a while, to give him time to marinate, was their phrase.
Alright.
I didn't like that wording.
The bobbin's out, so I'm done for the night.
I was happy to let them try out their techniques. The feisty uplift raised his head and...
Alright guys, thank you for stopping by. We'll continue the bats tomorrow. I have to do some driving tomorrow. Might have an early live stream. Ooh, who knows. Alright, thanks guys. You have a good night.